Miss Rabbit has fainted. Miss Rabbit has fainted again.
Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise.
Until the break of dawn I go.
Is that it?
Average salary in the UK is only 40 grand a year. Have you fucking heard?
Really?
40 grand, mate. I can make that in my fucking sleep.
I spent that on lunch yesterday, mate.
What's that say, mate? You've got all this food on finance, I haven't. I'll show you what I get and what it goes on.
I will do you one better, and I will show you my payslip from last year when I was on £14 an hour as a doctor. First year doctor, but bear in mind that first year doctor covers like 200 patients overnight. Here we go, £14 an hour, zoom in, see? And now it's £17 to be fair for first year doctors, but still not enough. So if you didn't believe me, there's your proof.
We've lost our banks, we've lost our post offices, and we're losing our pubs. There's a theme here. We're losing everything that brings communities together. We're losing everything that brings people together.
What's wrong with you? You're right.
Seems a very long time ago now. Back in the 80s and the 90s, one full-time wage could cover a mortgage, raise a family, and maybe even afford a holiday.
The stark truth is that wages don't pay as much as they did. Things that cost a hell of a lot more than they used to, and working families that are doing all the right things that government and society would want of them still can't make things stretch.
You get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
I heard some shocking statistics today following the new UK budget, and it's finally confirmed what millions of working families have been feeling for years, right? In Britain today, working doesn't pay. It costs you. So the numbers doing the rounds this week are shockingly enough to stop you, right? Because a working family must now earn around £71,000 combined total income just to have the same disposable income as a single parent of three on full welfare support. £71,000. A salary most people once viewed as being comfortably middle class, say, but it now barely matches the state safety net. Now, let's be clear, this is not about attacking single parents. They need the support. I've been there. It's bloody hard work. This is not about blaming people who rely on support, but as ever, there is abuse within the system, right? And this is not about people on benefits versus workers.
Welcome to Blighty Blighted, your daily reminder that work in Britain no longer guarantees a living. Let's talk about pay and wages in the UK because they are, to put it politely, absolutely awful. People work longer hours, harder jobs, more stress, and somehow end up with less at the end of the month. Nothing has changed since that so-called credit crunch. Remember that? Temporary pay freezes, temporary belt tightening, temporary sacrifice. Funny thing about temporary, it's lasted nearly 20 years. Wages flatlined back then and never recovered. Prices shot up, profits recovered, bonuses recovered. Workers, still waiting. People are told to be grateful they've got a job, while that job barely covers rent, food, and the privilege of traveling to work in the first place. In my day, a wage paid for a life. Now it pays for access to one. You've got people on decent-sounding salaries still living payday to payday. Professionals sharing houses, families one bill away from trouble, full-time work that somehow doesn't qualify as enough. And the biggest con of all? We were told the pain would lead to prosperity, that sacrifices would be rewarded, that things would trickle down. We got done, properly, played like a fiddle, and told it was economic responsibility.
Does anyone remember the last recession and housing crash in 2008? Because I do. I am that old. And I know there's a whole generation of people here that will be completely oblivious to it. But this is important for you. And it's something that you should start paying attention to right now, because there are signs, okay? And there have been signs, and I'm not talking about the stuff that's pumped out on the news. I'm talking about other stuff that you can see in plain sight that shows that we are on the potential brink of something just as big, or what could potentially be even worse. And this is why you need a backup plan. Now, because I'm very old and I've been around about the same lifetime as a tortoise, this is why I wanted to share some of this information with you. And you know why? Because I worked in construction near enough my whole life. And construction is one of the first industries that will see change when it comes to people and their spending habits. So when things are good, people spend money on their houses. When things are bad, it's one of the things, unless it's an essential, that they will start to put off, because they are typically big investment spends. So this goes from anything from buying a new kitchen to moving house. Like I say, I've worked in construction since 1999. Yes, I know, that was before the millennium. And I've watched this happen a couple of times, and obviously 2008 was the biggest change that we saw. But it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom, and it doesn't have to be bad. You just have to be prepared and be able to see what's coming. Or should I say, potentially coming. Now, I'm not a doom and gloom person. You create your own opportunities in life. And this is why you should start to pay attention to certain people out there that will teach you ways in which, if this does happen, can make it slightly better for you and not necessarily worse. P.S. I am not one of those people. So this morning, I follow a creator called Rob Moore. He's on here, he's on Instagram, okay? And he started talking about how the rich get richer in a recession. And it got me thinking, what are the signs that, if you don't watch the news, like me, you can see happening out there in the social media world now of what's causing the change? And what I'm going to say is the last 6 to 12 months, the amount of people that I have seen posting on their social media saying that they're looking for a side hustle or a second income stream because they can't afford to pay their bills. That's a sign. When your money isn't going as far, it's not only to do with the rising prices, but obviously that is a big part of it. It's mostly to do with the fact that people aren't earning at the same rate as where everything is going up, in which case they are needing to top up their income. So what can you do about it? If you are one of those people that is struggling right now and you are nervous about the future, start looking for opportunities that you can start doing that will still give you an income should things get worse. Look at the businesses that are out there that you can do that will help people do one of two things: save money or earn more money. Because those are the things that people are going to need to do if we end up in recession, if people are losing their jobs, if our bills, our rent, our mortgages are all going up. People will need options that they can fit in and around their existing commitments, whether that's work, kids, whatever it be, that they can maximise as much as possible what they are earning. But most importantly, are also in control of it. Because let's not forget, people in recession, or should I say companies in recession, cut jobs. So if you've already got a plan B, you're one step ahead of everybody else. That is my message for you. Spend the next few months looking for that.
But now in 2025, you've got 2 adults working full time. That's 70 plus hours a week between the both of you. And somehow you're still skint. And it's not because we're lazy, it's because wages haven't kept up with reality. Since 2008, real wages have flatlined. But house prices, childcare, food bills, they've all gone sky high. They told us to work harder, so we did. We took on the stress and sacrificed our time, what we could have been spending with our kids and family, and still we can't afford to live properly. At the moment, it's not a cost of living crisis, it's a cost of surviving crisis. We're not asking for luxury, just the kind of life that our parents had on one wage. So where's it all going? Upstairs to landlords, CEOs, energy giants? And if we're making more, then the government will be taxing us more. yet our services are shitter than any other time I can remember. But we'll get into that in another video. The bottom line is we're working harder than ever for less than ever, and that's got to change.
So this tweet really caught my eye over the weekend, and I think it highlights something really important about why so many schools are struggling so much with recruitment and retention. Right, so here's a picture. In 2008, a new teacher in England started on around £20,627 a year. Minimum wage at the time worked out roughly £10,700 to £11,500 a year, depending on whether you count a full-time week as 37.5 hours or 40 hours. That meant starting teacher pay sat around 80 to 90% higher than the minimum a full-time worker could earn. So if we skip to today, a new teacher starts on around about £32,916 a year. The current minimum wage works out around £22,300 to £23,800 per year. So the gap between a starting teacher and the minimum a full-time worker earns has shrunk to around about 35 to 45%. Now, to make this absolutely crystal clear, no one is saying minimum wage should not have gone up. It absolutely should have done. People deserve a livable income. The problem is that teacher pay hasn't kept pace, and when the relative value of a job drops that sharply over time, it affects who applies and who stays. And then if you take into account student loans and you factor in tax, NI, repayments for that, a new teacher ends up with only a quarter more take-home pay than a full-time minimum wage worker with no loan. Now, that's not a criticism of minimum wage workers. It's simply a sign of how compressed teacher pay has become. That's for teachers. If we look at TAs, most TAs earn between £19,000 and £23,000 full time, but because the majority of term time contracts, their actual take home is often between £14,000 to £18,000 a year, which means some highly skilled, experienced TAs, people who support SEND pupils, run interventions, handle medical and behavioural needs, are earning below or just above what they'd get on minimum wage. And so when the pay for TAs sits that close to the floor, schools then struggle to hold on to these brilliant staff. Many leave for jobs in retail, hospitality, admin roles, not because they don't love the children, but because they simply cannot afford to do the job anymore. Put all this together and the story becomes really clear. This isn't about blaming minimum wage. This isn't about pitting other jobs against each other. It's about saying when a profession slowly loses its financial competitiveness, people notice and they leave, or they don't choose that career. That's exactly why we've got almost 40,000 teachers leaving the state sector a year and a constant TA shortage in pretty much every school. People don't stop loving working with the children, they stop being able to justify it. And so I've talked previously about other reasons why 40,000 teachers leaving the profession each year. Pay is one of them, and this video has just shown that for education staff, pay has not kept pace with other places. And unless we're honest about those numbers and how they've shifted over time, we'll never fix the recruitment crisis. We'll never fix retention, and we'll just keep losing brilliant people, which means it'll impact young people's education. And that's what we want to give children the best possible education possible. And we've got to make sure teaching is attractive enough to bring people in so they can earn what they deserve in line with what's going on in other areas. And again, it's not, because I know what's going to happen with a video like this. Everyone's going to get in the comments and start comparing teaching. And, you know, I've seen some replies to these tweets where it's really negative and teacher bashing. That's not about it. Just highlighting the issue of how teacher pay just hasn't kept up the pace and is a contributing factor to why so many teachers are leaving.
So we've just had the GDP.
Being underpaid and they don't even know it. Are you one of them? Are you paid below minimum wage? There are so many reasons why you could be underpaid national minimum wage. This is just an example and a selection of the common reasons why workers on this month's minimum wage name and shame list were underpaid. 491 UK employers were named this week for underpaying their staff minimum wage. £6 million worth of underpayments. But the one that's really catching most employers out and finding lots of people to be underpaid are salaried employees who are contracted to a certain amount of hours each year for a certain amount of pay, and they don't get paid for the hours they work in excess of their contracted hours. There is a massive risk with NMW calculations, and lots of salaried employees are actually being underpaid. If you want to know any more, then like and follow the page and pop it in the comments what you'd like me to discuss next.
Breaking news: for the first time in a long time, the poor are getting richer. Rachel Reeves has just increased the UK minimum wage for workers over 21 from £12.21 to £12.71. This is a 4.1% increase. Younger workers, however, are getting an even bigger pay rise. The minimum wage for 18 to 20-year-olds is increasing 8.1%, up to a lofty figure of £10.85. These changes are due to take into effect next year. What do you guys think of this? Is this a positive change, or is it not enough given the rising living costs and inflation? Let me know your thoughts.
The 3 worst companies to work for in the UK. Number 3, Sports Direct. The pressure at this company is so intense that a female worker actually gave birth in the warehouse toilets, too terrified to take a sick day. Investigations into its Shirebrook warehouse revealed 76 ambulance call-outs in just 2 years. Management enforces a draconian 6 strikes policy where minor infractions lead to termination. For years, staff were even subject to unpaid mandatory body searches after shifts, marking it as a notorious low point in British retail. Number 2, J.D. Wetherspoon. Often criticized by staff as the fast food sweatshop of British pubs, its founder famously told employees to go work at Tesco during the pandemic, sparking public outrage. Workers report exhausting shifts driven by the relentless app ordering system. Combined with 0-hour contracts, staff are often left with unstable income and zero job security. Number 1, Every. Formerly known as Hermes, the company rebranded to escape its bad reputation, but drivers say the toxic culture remains. Most couriers are classified as self-employed lifestyle couriers, meaning no sick pay or guaranteed salary. After deducting fuel and vehicle costs, actual earnings often fall far below the minimum wage. With unpaid sorting times and impossible daily quotas, it is regarded as the grim reality of the UK's gig economy.
July saw a 0% growth rate in the UK economy, showing that our economy has just continued to slow down. These figures really show concern for the months ahead, especially given the UK-US trade wars, along with the effects of elevated inflation. And this is especially concerning given the fact that we are soon due to have a budget from Rachel Reeves. And what do we think she's going to do to increase this growth? Inflation is currently running at double the Bank of England's 2% target. And reports are coming out suggesting that employers are cutting jobs at the fastest pace since 2021. So what is Rachel Reeves going to include in her November budget to rectify the situation? What do you think she should be including? Let me know in the comments below.
The UK economy just contracted again, and October's GDP drop is raising big questions for Rachel Reeves and the Labour government. Let's take a look. The ONS data shows that the UK economy declined 0.1% in October, despite economists' expectations that there would be slight growth. That makes 2 consecutive monthly declines after September was also revised to a 0.1% fall following a cyber attack on Jaguar Land Rover that month. So, what's driving the slowdown? Well, much of the weakness links back to the uncertainty around Rachel Reeves' budget. Months of leaks and speculation froze a lot of business investment, also dampening consumer confidence and slowed activity across production, construction and services. Over the August to October period, GDP fell 0.1%. That's the first 3-month decline since 2023. Services stalled, production fell again and construction slipped. Even the car industry only managed a slight recovery. The Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride said that the figures were very concerning and blamed Labour's economic mismanagement. Rachel Reeves ultimately announced $26 billion in tax rises, pushing the UK's tax burden to around 38% of GDP by 2029, which is a record high. Markets now see a 90% chance that the Bank of England cuts rates next week to support the sluggish economy, but persistently high inflation could limit how much further they can cut. The big question is this a temporary dip caused by budget anxiety or the start of a deeper downturn?
You know someone who's a salaried employee, but they always work longer than their contracted hours and they're not paid overtime for it at all? well then you need to share this video with them. Salaried employees are being underpaid minimum wage, and that's for people earning 50, 60,000 a year. It's all to do with the calculation. And today the government and the Low Pay Commission published this document that shows that the underpayment pattern is shifting and bringing into play salaried employees. HMRC are actively enforcing this risk at the moment. If you are a salaried employee and you do more than your contracted hours that you're not paid for in overtime and you're not given the time back in lieu, then you could also be underpaid minimum wage. When did you last check if you had been underpaid?
I just saw a post now where somebody posts something in relation to the kind of salary you need to be earning to be able to buy a house in part of London and some part of South in England. Now, looking at those salaries as a nurse, one thing that came to my mind is that I won't even be able to afford a house because what I'm earning is nothing closer to those salary expectations that you need to be eligible to buy a house. Now, whenever you hear nurses shouting about pay raise and things like that, these are one of the reasons. You are not even able to afford a house. You are not eligible to buy a house, except maybe you are a double income household. But as a single person, that you are a nurse, London, south of England, I don't even know anywhere in the UK that you'll be able to afford a house as a nurse. Nurses are being paid so poorly in the UK, and that's on period, in comparison to what nurses are earning in other parts of the world like the US, Canada, Australia. Nurses are being paid so poorly in this country, and this is why we are screaming for pay rise every time. Guys, there you have it.
So here it is what I get a month. 2,558 in benefits in total. £30 towards the kids' uniform. £750 towards rent. £700 for the food shop for the month. This is for the month. Gas and electric, 310. The cost of running 2 cars, 350 a month. Sky, Netflix and Disney Plus, £190 a month. Booze and fags, 210 a month. Pet food for the dogs, £80 a month. £200 for the phones a month and the data. Spray tanning, £60 a month. Gym, £55 a month. And £150 a month for the betting shop. And that comes to £3,085 in total. And it leaves me £527 short a month. So that's not enough to live on, 2,558. So we need to get more benefits. So thank you, taxpayers. You work so I don't have to.
Can anyone actually afford to live in the UK anymore? So today we're going to break it down. I've been going over some statistics from the ONS and from .gov.uk. This means they know. They have these statistics, they have this data, and everything I'm going to tell you today is based on UK averages. Just pay attention, because I really think some people in this country have not got a clue how bad some people have it. The cost of living in the UK has spiraled out of control, and we're going to break down and see if people can actually survive on the wages they're paid. So how much does the average person earn? Well, the UK's average national salary is £37,430 a year. After tax and national insurance, that gives you about £2,400 a month to live on. Sounds all right, yeah? Well, let's see where that money actually goes. By ONS and .gov UK statistics, monthly bills for an average household rent or mortgage are £1,341 for renters outside London, way more expensive inside London, and a mortgage at £1,056 for a typical home loan. Council tax, £180, going up. Electricity and gas, £117, going up. Water bills, £44, going up. Groceries, £310, and that's before you even add a bottle of wine. Fuel, £79, probably going up. Clothing, soap, toothpaste, etc., etc., £77. So what's left? If you rent, you are left with £252 a month at the end of the month. If you own a home, you have £537 left. And that's all before you even think about insurance, phone bills, internet, childcare, savings, emergencies, or any modicum of a social life. And this is for someone on an average salary. What about those on minimum wage, which has recently gone up to £12.12, or is going to go up in April to £12.12. That means a full-time worker, 40 hours a week, will earn £25,400 a year. After tax, they will take home £1,700 a month. But the average monthly bills for a renter are £2,148. That means they're £448 short every single month just to survive. And I'll reiterate, that does not count insurance, phone bills, internet, childcare, savings, emergencies, or any modicum of a social life. So what salary do you actually need to break even? To cover all essential bills without any spare cash, i.e. zero disposable income, a renter needs to earn £36,823 a year, a homeowner £31,937 a year. So if you're on minimum wage, you are miles off from being able to survive without taking on debt, getting benefits, or cutting essentials. The conclusion? How are people supposed to live? The numbers do not lie, and they are government published statistics. Even those earning the average salary are just scraping by. And if you're on minimum wage, you're in a financial hole before you even start. So the big question is this: how are people meant to live in the UK if wages aren't keeping up with the cost of living? Because right now, via government statistics, they don't add up. But I suppose Rachel Reeves has had her non-existent or working calculator out again, hasn't she? A YouGov survey that was done last year suggested that 45% of the UK earns less than £30,000 a year, which means that at least 45% of the nation, on average, at the end of the month, cannot afford to pay their bills. That's shocking.
What are the lowest paid full-time jobs in the UK? I'm going to tell you. And the last one might not be as you think. The average annual salaries for some of the lowest paid full-time jobs in the UK are this. At number 10, teaching and childcare support roles. They get on average £19,600 a year. At number 9, launderers and dry cleaners. Again, on average, they get £19,600 a year. In at number 8 are hairdressers and barbers, with an average of £19,500 a year. And at number 7, educational support assistants, who average £19,300 a year. In at number 6 are teaching assistants, who average £19,000. In at number 5, beauticians, who also average £19,000. At number 4, retail cashiers and checkout staff, who get £18,600. At number 3, waiters and waitresses, who get £18,400. At number 2, bar staff, who average £18,100 a year. And finally, in the top place for earning the lowest for full-time work in the UK are leisure and theme park attendants, who average £17,800 per year. Were these salaries what you were expecting, and do you do one of these jobs? And if so, how do you compare?
If you earn £34,000 a year, it is not enough to survive on. I just saw this post that's been going around the internet. I'll show you guys. Here you go. 34k is worthless. You are being brainwashed. I agree with this young lady because it's not enough money. Taking home £2,300 after tax is not enough. It will never be enough, okay? There you go. It will never be enough. I don't care who wants to come for me. I know the average salary in the UK is 37,000. I understand that, yes, as humans, we must be grateful. But because of the cost of living, because of the fact that council tax is going up this year, water is going up this year, gas and electricity is going up. The cost of living is outrageous. You shouldn't have to move from London. Let's say you grew up in London to go to, I don't know, Stoke-on-Trent, or move to somewhere up north or down south just to survive. What if I don't know anyone up there? What if I don't know anyone in that side of the UK? Yes, I want to get a cheaper mortgage, but if, for example, you do decide to have a child, what about childcare? Childcare is expensive. So 34k is never enough. If you are earning that, I would recommend that you start trying to upskill and try and pivot into a career where you can earn more money, because it's not enough. If that's your first salary, then okay, cool, it's a good start. But your goal is get promoted, start making more money as soon as possible. If you decide to stay at 34k for the next 5-10 years, you're not going to be happy. And you're going to be one of those persons who will eventually think it's time to move to Dubai. Because honestly, the UK is finished.
Here's the monthly take-home pay on what is classed as one of the worst salaries in the UK when it comes to paying tax, £125,000. Okay, so in most people's cases, you would actually get the first £12,570 off your salary free of tax, because this is classed as your personal allowance. However, once you hit £100,000, for every £2 that you earn over this, you actually lose £1 of that allowance. This means that earning £125,000 will actually only leave you with £70 left of that allowance, leaving you a taxable income of £124,930. On this, you'll pay a total amount of income tax of £42,432. From here, you have national insurance as well, which is going to be £4,510.60 per year. And this will leave you a take-home pay of £78,057.40 a year, or £6,504.79 a month. There's certainly some ways that you can reduce this tax bill, such as additional pension contributions. But what do you think? Do you think this is a lot of tax, or do you think this is about right?
Sam, let me just switch gears here for a second, because immigration isn't the only problem in care. I'm Shannon, and I rant about the UK care system because it is actually on some bullshit. The entire sector is rotten, not cracked, not flawed, rotten from the top down, big man. Let's talk about the reality of working in care. You're doing life or death work, washing, feeding, medicating, safeguarding, documenting, and you're getting paid barely more than someone folding t-shirts in Primark, rude girl. We're lifting adults, handling medical needs, dealing with dementia, end-of-life care, trauma, abuse and crisis, and you're expected to do it all with a smile. No sick days, no pay rise. You work 12-hour shifts that magically turn into 14 because someone called in sick and there's no one to cover. Before Karen jumps in my comments with, just leave, people, that's the problem, Karen. The system is collapsing. And don't even start me with the phrase, but it's a vocation. No, a vocation doesn't mean starvation of wages. A vocation doesn't mean guilt-tripped into overtime because there's no staff. A vocation doesn't mean you're emotionally destroyed, physically exhausted and financially struggling while the company's running it, pulling millions. You can't build a workforce out of burnout, guilt and minimum wage, big man. And until carers are actually paid what the job's worth, the crisis isn't a problem, it's a guarantee. I'm too loud to be ignored, number 10. Hit follow because I'm not backing down from this chaos.
Minimum wage isn't helping workers, it's flattening pay, damaging progression and making hiring worse for everyone. From April 26, minimum wage is £12.71 an hour. So a standard 40-hour week, that's about 26.5 grand a year. But if you compare that to a junior professional role, 2 years experience, real responsibility, something like an account manager or a junior manager, salary, about £28,000. Now if you break that down, you're on roughly £13.45 an hour. So after all that training and experience and pressure, you're barely earning more per hour than minimum wage. And that is the career distortion Labour doesn't understand. They believe they are putting more money in people's pockets. They're not. Businesses are paying that money. And those same businesses are being hit with higher taxes at every level of employment. If you're choosing between a low-stress hourly job where every extra hour is paid or a higher-stress salaried role with fixed pay and unpaid overtime, the incentive disappears. Why take the harder job? You see, this flattens ambition, it flattens progression, it flattens the entire pay structure above minimum wage. And look at what it does to employers, because if you've got to pay the same rate, who'd you hire? Someone with skills, experience and track record, or someone brand new? Which means the very people minimum wage is supposed to help find it harder to get hired at all. This is what happens when ideology replaces economics. Minimum wage sounds fair, but it distorts the market above it. It makes hiring harder, progression weaker,
and work less rewarding. Labour going harder and faster to mediocrity.
What the fuck is going on in the UK? Childcare costs, horrendous. Car insurance, horrendous. Shopping, double horrendous. Like, everything costs a fucking fortune. Now, luckily, I'm in a position where I can afford it. What are people doing, yeah? I haven't got much money. What the fuck? All our bills are rising, but what if you've not got a little bit of money to make up for that bill that's increasing? Then what do you do? I am literally fed up with this country. I just want out. I mean, I know nowhere else is perfect, but just the cost of living is getting ridiculous. And then actually, living's just poor. Like, people, I feel like people are just surviving. Every other day, I am seeing people posting that they are just working to survive. They've got nothing to show for the money that they're earning. It's just a sad, sad existence, and I'm not fucking here for it. That is why I started making income online. I started making income online so I can live a better lifestyle, so that I do not have to slave away for a paycheck that doesn't go far. I need to fucking wake up. We're living in a digital era. We're going into 2025. The world is changing. If you do not change with it, you're going to get left behind, and you're going to live such a miserable, miserable life. It's time to work smarter, not harder.
This comment says UK pay as a whole is pretty bad at the moment. Inflation is going quicker than wage rises. Some people, apparently yourself, are lucky to still get a good wage, but there's so many more struggling. You know, I think if you have a job and you've been in your career for a couple of years now, you don't actually realize how bad the UK job market is. It's only when I come on TikTok, make these style of videos, and I see comments from people who are actively searching for jobs right now. It's not uncommon for me to see 50 comments from people who are talking about their experiences with the UK job market right now, and the fact that it's in absolute pieces. And it's not only that, but it's these senior positions that are paying like 30, even £35,000 a year. These are senior positions that they want you to jump through all these hoops to get and have qualifications and master's degrees and bachelor's degrees and all these types of things. But you're only going to pay someone £35,000. I mean, based on that wage in London, you wouldn't be able to get anywhere. In some places, you wouldn't even be able to qualify for the rental payment on a studio flat or even a HMO. So there would be some areas of London that you couldn't afford to live in a room sharing with 5 other people in a house on a £35,000 salary that you have to go to uni for, that you have to get a master's for, and that you have to have experience in. That to me is utterly crazy. Like, it shouldn't ever get that bad. But the fact that they're comfortable putting these salaries this low means that there's people that are going to be applying for these positions. Put yourself in an employer's shoes. You're all out for profit. You want to make as much money as possible, and you basically exist to satisfy your shareholders. Why would you want to pay any more? And I don't blame them, because there's no incentives. There's no one saying no. The government's stepping in with universal credit and topping up poor wages. It's just a whole mess right now with the UK job market.
Right, you're getting paid less than your co-workers doing the same job with the same responsibilities but just a different job title. Is that fair? Well, the fact is an employer can offer you whatever rate of pay they want, providing it's above the minimum wage, and they don't have to necessarily match somebody else doing exactly the same job as you in the workplace. But there is an exception, and this is a very important exception, and that is when it becomes discriminatory. So if you're a woman and you're working in a role and all the women are doing the same job as you are getting paid less than the men doing the same role or a job of equal value, then that's discriminatory and you can't do that. But in the normal course of events, simply because you're doing the same job as your colleague, they might have been hired on a different rate to you. There's nothing wrong with that. Your employer can do so.
Dr. Rachel Stewart here, critical criminologist, who has a particular interest in semiology. Semiology is the study of social harms. So the things that cause harm, like death, but aren't actual crimes. And today, this report came out. 100,000 people who work in the care system are paid below the living wage. That's 43% of all care workers are paid below the living wage. And in London, that's over 80% of them. It goes up. Over 80% of the care workers in London are not paid the living wage. Now, from a social harms point of view, this is just a wet dream. I mean, it's the social harms experienced by the people who have been looked after. I mean, because what level of care can you expect from people who are so stressed out by the fact that they cannot afford to live? But also, what does that say about the people who do care, the people whose job it is to care, what our response is to them, and how that must make them feel, but also how that makes the people who need care feel. This is harmful. This is damaging. This is damaging to the individuals involved, but it's damaging to our society as a whole. It's damaging when the people who fall on hard times or are old can't expect to be cared for in the way that they are entitled to, and that people who work hard looking after people are not being given their worth. If you really want to see change, you need to be starting to ask questions of the people who are looking for your vote. Next time you get an opportunity, ask one of those politicians that are looking for your vote, what are they going to do about upping the wages of carers? And if they've got no response, jog them on. My name is Dr. Rachel Stewart. I'm a critical criminologist. Follow me.
Here's what's wrong with wages in the UK. Now, taking into account the rise in the minimum wage from April, the minimum wage for an adult is £12.71 an hour, to which if you work a 40-hour week over the year, you are getting £26,436. Now, I've just seen a job advert for a account manager at a agency. I work in like social media marketing, stuff like that, right? They're looking for someone with 2 years experience to be an account manager, and starting salary is 28,000. So you need 2 years experience working in what is quite a fast-paced industry. It's quite competitive, and you'll get 28 grand. Or no experience, go and work in a supermarket or a bar or a coffee shop or anything like that, and you'll earn £26,436. The funny thing is as well, is that with most of those jobs, you will usually be on an hourly rate, which will then get you more money if you work overtime. Whereas when you work on a salary, you don't get any money if you work overtime. Yet on those type of industries, I guarantee you will work more than 40 hours a week. So you're actually worse off in a salary position at 28,000 than you are on an hourly rate working a minimum wage job at any supermarket or anything like that, which is absolutely wild. In my opinion, the minimum wage in this country is too high, and wages in general are too low. And that gap now between experienced hires and people on minimum wage is it's so small that there's basically no point now in hiring people straight off the bat. You might as well just hire someone with 2 years experience and pay them tiny bit more, which just seems pointless. Absolute economy's dying, like absolutely dying.
The UK has a serious problem with financial education. This report is called Understanding UK Savers, and it was a report issued by JP Morgan. Now, here are the key headlines, but you're going to want to hold on because the next slide that I show you is so damning. Let's talk about the first one. The first one is talking about confidence about saving and investing is low. Completely understand that because there is a lack of financial education in our country. Next one, I 100% agree with. People are too risk adverse and they prefer to hold cash rather than doing something with it. There's an over-reliance on property. Yeah, 100%. People think about retirement too late. Yes, people don't pay enough into their private pensions. Individuals aren't being adequately equipped to make good financial decisions. Yes, again, this links because financial education is so poor. And expectations of the state are too high. Yes, people are heavily reliant on the state pension and they think that's going to sort them out. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with a lot of this report, but are you ready? So here is the graph. And this was a question saying, think about saving for your retirement over a long time. Which of the following do you believe has the potential to provide the best overall returns. So that's not necessarily what people are using, it's just what they think is best. So first of all, they said pension fund, which I kind of understand because obviously they're thinking about retirement. The next one, which had nearly 25% of people said they have no idea. I mean, that's so sad to see because obviously that's showing lack of financial education. Are you ready? For me, this was the big one. More people think just holding cash savings will give you a better return on investment than holding stocks. Obviously, this is not financial advice, but we know the history of holding an index fund against cash massively outperforms over the long term. But yeah, like I say, this report just proves to me how poor financial education is in the UK. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and before you go, don't forget to like and follow for more finance and investing content.
Wages in the UK have been frozen for well over a decade, while everything else from our energy bills to our food has exploded. It's a fact that feels impossible to escape. Even when we get a small pay rise, inflation takes it straight back out of our wallet. You see, over the past 15 years, our real wages have barely grown at all, leaving us with less spending power than we had 10 years ago. So, year after year, we are working just as hard or even harder, and in real terms, we're getting poorer. This isn't a coincidence, it's the result of our economy's slow wage growth and mismanagement. That's why it feels like we can't get ahead, no matter what we do. You see, we're stuck in a wage trap that makes survival feel like it's our full-time job.
So guys, on my side of TikTok, there's a girl going viral at the moment because she said £34,000 wasn't a good salary. And guys, you should see the comments, the amount of people that are coming for her and telling her that 34,000 is a good salary and they wish they were on 34,000. Honestly, the attitude that some British people have towards money and salary is astounding to me. Like, £34,000 after tax is about £2,200. The average cost of living in the UK ranges from like £2,700 to like £4,000 if you're a family with children. So as you can see, the salary does not even cover the living costs on average. And people in the comments are like, oh, it's because you live in London. You know, outside of London, £34,000 is a livable salary. And that is the optimum word. It's just livable. This is the problem that we have in the UK. A lot of people are not doing very well. A lot of people are just surviving. And the main reason for this is that cost of living has gone up significantly over the last number of years, where salaries have barely gone up. They are stagnant. Like, realistically, what can most people living in the major cities in the UK do with £2,200 when rent is so significantly expensive, cost of food has gone up? Like, what can you do? Most people in the comments are like, oh, well, I have that salary and, you know, I'm able to go on one holiday, I have a mortgage and I save £200. £200 a month to save when you need to retire one day is not enough. Like, it's not enough. And I don't understand how people can't see that the government is really failing people and we need to do something to push back and not have this attitude in thinking that, oh, just because £34,000 is good in one small area of the country, it means that it's a good salary overall. It's not. Like, do you know how rich this country is? How much money we're supposed to have, and our average salary is £37,000, not even £37,000, less than. You know, arguing with a girl because she's saying she literally cannot survive.
Meanwhile, productivity went up, expectations went up, stress went up, but wages stayed stuck in the early 2000s like a bad fashion choice. Young people think this is normal because it's all they've ever known. Older ones know better. And that's what really hurts. When a country decides that full-time work isn't enough to live on, it's not an accident. It's a choice. Britain didn't just underpay its workers. It quietly redefined poverty and hoped no one would notice. Cheerio, and I will see you all in the next video.